All right, welcome back. We're going to do a little more LabVIEW in this lesson. What I'm going to cover today is a for loop, and sometimes in programs you want to repeat the same step over and over again, and that's called a loop. There are several different types of loops. There's a for loop and a while loop, which are two that we're going to discuss a bunch in LabVIEW. A for loop, the way a for loop works is if you know how many times something needs to be repeated, you use a for loop because we can specify how many times something is repeated. These are great for things where you know something has to happen 10 times, or and maybe it's something that comes along during program time that it happens a certain number of times. That's fine. The other type is a while loop, and I'll cover those in a separate lesson. But that's for things where you don't know exactly how long or how many times something's going to repeat. These are really nice for things like if a user is going to input something. If a user is going to input something or be in control of something, like suppose you want them to take temperature measurements until they want it to stop, you may not know how long that's going to take, so you may need them to take lots of measurements, or maybe another time they only take a couple. So that would be an instance where you want to use a while loop. But for now, we're going to use a for loop. And so to use a for loop in LabVIEW, go over to the block diagram, you right click, under structures, the thing says for loop. So we click that, and then we can drag out a for loop. And there it is. Anything that happens, any elements we put inside this loop happen inside the loop. That's what gets repeated. Anything outside the loop doesn't get repeated. To specify how many times the loop executes, we have this little end terminal up here. It says loop count. So I can right click on it on the left side of it. And when it finishes doing its little circle of death thing here, maybe it'll finish its circle of death. Ahem. There it goes. Create a constant. Maybe I'll make this 10. And that means this loop will happen 10 times. And this little I down here is our current loop. And so just for fun, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the right side of it and do create an indicator. I got this little numeric indicator. And so it's going to tell us what loop we're on. And we can make this do a lot of things, but this is a really simple for loop. So if I hit run, boom, all the way up to 9. Well, and you're kind of like, well, why is it stopping at 9? And the reason for that is we actually started counting at 0. So when you do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on your fingers, you'll see that you've got 10. So 0 through 9 is our 10 iterations, so that's what we've got. But you'll also notice it just went straight there. Like, what happened? Well, what's happening is this loop is executing faster than you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click somewhere in here, inside the loop, and there's this thing called timing. And I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to go put that in there. Actually, you know what? I'm going to right click. I'm going to do timing. I'm going to do wait until next millisecond multiple. I'll explain about that. Put that in. Right click on this side of it. Create. And I'm just going to put 1,000. What this does is it looks at the internal clock and says, have 1,000 milliseconds passed? Or rather, is the clock divisible by 1,000 milliseconds? If it is, then go ahead and finish running the loop. But otherwise, it sits there and waits until that time. So what we're basically getting is 1,000 millisecond wait in here. So now if I run it, you'll see 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there it is. There's our for loop. It's a pretty simple device, and we'll use it a couple times throughout the semester, and it's a good thing to know you have. This 10, we can have this be something that we program through a constant. We can also do things like run an array, which I'll talk about later in here, and I'll talk about how that all comes together later in the semester. But in the meantime, just know if you know how many times something's going to run, then you can use a for loop.